Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. I don't know if you knew this, but anyone can get the same premium wireless for $15 a month plan that I've been enjoying. It's not just for celebrities. So do like I did and have one of your assistant's assistants switch you to Mint Mobile today. I'm told it's super easy to do at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. New subscribers only. Renew for 12 months to lock in savings. Taxes and fees extra. Additional restrictions apply. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
Acast powers the world's best podcasts. Here's a show that we recommend.
Do you love to read or listen to books? Is your nightstand overflowing with books you just don't have time to read? Listen to my podcast, Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books with Zibby. I'm an author, publisher, podcaster, bookstore owner. My own novel, Blank, is out March 1st. And if you love books, you're in the right place. In fact, we call it the Zibbyverse, or rather, the LA Times calls it the Zibbyverse. Check us out, Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books with Zibby.
Acast helps creators launch, grow, and monetize their podcasts everywhere. Acast.com.
Hello guys, welcome to this week's episode of Heavy Metal Tones with me, your podcast host, Tony Evans. First things first, I'd like to say a big thank you to the all my new listeners on the subcontinent of India. I had a huge spike in downloads for the episode before last. I think I might have mentioned that last week, but I'll just mention it again. Thank you very much. Some really good feedback about the Slayer one. So yeah, please do keep... emailing in or messaging me. I really quite enjoy your correspondence. This week's one is just a chat. I think it's been a little while since I just had a chat about a particular genre. Usually, and I tend to be very it's album driven the last few weeks, but maybe in the last few months. But it's quite nice to do something different. So I was thinking. And this came about because I was literally fossicking off for non-Australians. I was digging through my T-shirt collection, trying to find something different to wear today. Yesterday. And I pulled out my Gwar shirt from the 2014 Australian tour. And I thought, comedy in metal, or comedy in rock and roll, why do they go so well together? And had a good deep thought about it, or think about it. And it really came to me to this. Well, firstly, why do I enjoy comedy? Because some people don't enjoy the lighter side of their music. Some find it irritating and offensive. I don't know why they do that, but they do. I personally have always had a deeper love of comedy myself. I wanted to be, from an early age, a stand-up comedian. I wanted to write the best sitcom ever written, and I wanted to just make people laugh. I used to really enjoy it. Having a big family and being bullied as a child, the old adage that make the bullies laugh, they leave you alone, it generally quite works, actually. It worked for me, to be fair. I mean, occasionally... the shield would be down and they'd smack me in the face, but most of the time you can make them laugh and they'd move along. I've always fancied myself as... I was also going to do a degree in the history of comedy. I thought I'd enjoy that, particularly post-war 45 to 59, a very specific era of time, because that's the... That's the sort of the Hancock, Gorton and Simpson era of radio comedy. And if you don't know who Gorton and Simpson are, please after this podcast, go and find out who they are. They're two of the greatest, probably the greatest sitcom writers of all time. You know, if you look back at what they wrote, so Tony Hancock, Steptoe and Son, but to name a couple, you know, they're alone. That's genius, is it not? Right? TV, film, and radio. So pretty amazing. Okay. I'm a member of the Dad's Army fan club, and I really enjoy the work of David Croft and Jimmy Perry. Two different kind of writers, though. I mean, they are vaudevillian writers, so like very much musical writers, right? Beautiful. Both sets of writers make beautiful ensemble cast writing. That means that there's literally a very small amount of actors in the roles, and they make such wonderfully detailed and deliciously ironic characters that are full of pathos and sympathy, and you don't dislike any of them, even though you do tend to end up sort of disliking Albert from Steptoe and Son, and you don't like I personally really find the Sid James character from Hancock's Half Hour very dislikable. You still love them in a sort of love-hate way, like Del Boy is a dickhead, right? But you love him, don't you? From Only Fools and Horses, same as Granddad, he's a lovable idiot. Even Boise, he's a snob, but you end up still loving him, right? Again, that's Only Fools and Horses. So, where was I going? Yeah, that's what I wanted to do. And maybe one day in the future, I might end up doing that. I thought I'd like to write a book on it. I do collect and have collected for years rare BBC radio comedy post-war. So 70, I said 45 to around 58, 60 that time. Because this leads into why we're going to talk about comedy in metal now, right? It leads very succinctly, I can't say that quickly, succinctly into that, because I also have this absolute love, and I know people will roll their eyes, and there are people out there at PC who are going to turn off now, but I really, really enjoy the Carry On movies. I grew up watching all the Carry On movies. My mum and dad had a dirty sense of humour. Brothers all loved a good double entendre. Mrs. and all that, Ivor Biggin and all that sort of stuff. That what a lovely pair, all that kind of nonsense. But what was wonderful about the Carry On movies is that it was the actors in the Carry On movies. Okay, Kenneth Williams, this was highly intelligent, extremely funny, acerbic and urbane man. Sid James, born in South Africa, came to the UK to seek his fortune, becomes one of the biggest names in the world at one point, but in the UK anyway, maybe. Hattie Jakes, who was also married to John Le Mesurier, who played the sergeant in Dad's Army. My favourite Carry On movie actor, which is Peter Butterworth, very small bit part actor mainly, but I loved the way his facial expressions and the fact that he wasn't the main cast. He got some of the greatest lines. Bernard Bresslaw, who lived down the road from me as a kid. I went to school with one of his family members, with one of his probably his distant cousin, probably, I'm not sure, but definitely did. I think he went to synagogue with a friend of mine. But really just, it was dirty, fun, colourful, and a way of releasing the valve of pressure that the war had brought, and austerity with with the greyness and drabness that, you Americans listen to this, you won't know this because war finished, yes, and again, you lost a lot of people, we know that's very sad, but you joined late, and that's, again, political reasons, you joined late, and you also weren't bombed, and you didn't have rationing, and you didn't have austerity. You go back Sunshine is over there, and you're chewing gum on your comics and your Hollywood, and we had to deal with paying for the damage, and the cost of life, and the fact we couldn't grow anything and nothing could. Houses were destroyed. People were living in temporary accommodation. It was quite drab. The pound as a currency was weak. We were dealing with paying out, help it with other nations. We were doing all sorts of stuff, right? All stuff post-empire people did. And so you reached out and had whatever you could. Now, the way to go, the reason that they were so popular was that in the UK, we would go to the seaside for holidays. Just for the day sometimes. We used to go as a kids for the day. We'd all get we'd all chip in and with all our neighbours, and we'd hire a coach, which is called a charabanc, and we would get the charabanc to, we'd go to Margate or Southend or Blackpool or Brighton. Not Blackpool was too far. We used to go to Brighton for the illuminations when they used to put all the Christmas lights up. But before that, so in the summer we'd go there and you spend the day on the beach. What beaches they do have in the UK? You're paddling around, sort of sitting on the edge of some brown water that we think is the sea, and then we'd eat lots of sugar, candy floss, annoy mum and dad to get us to go on the rides, and we'd get we'd pay 50p or whatever it was to get on a donkey and ride up and down the beach on a donkey. I had some of my fondest memories of being on the donkey rides. And so that comedy, that bawdy comedy, comes from that, because it's a release valve. People working, 6 days a week, factory workers, office, shop workers, just releasing themselves by going to the beach. And of course, what they're going to do, they're going to make bawdy, naughty jokes, because they go to the pier. Now, for those again that are English, piers are a big platform structure that goes out into the water. And on that structure, they have fairground rides, they have tarot card readers, they have knobbly knees competitions, they have all sorts of things to keep the family entertained and keep them away from thinking about their day-to-day lives. And they used to sell postcards there, and those postcards would be posted back to your family. They were usually rude postcards, but they weren't rude. They were double entendre postcards, okay? They weren't out and out disgusting like they probably would be now. They were mainly illustrated by Donald Fraser Gould McGill. He was born in 1875 and he died in 1962. And they had, silly things like a big fat guy in an old-fashioned swimming costume looking out to sea going, "I wish I could see my little Willie." Things like that. Double entendres, fantastic. I've got a couple here I'm going to find for you. Here we go. There's a picture of a guy. Anyway, I'm trying to find one that we would translate to me reading it out. Okay. Yeah, there's a really big woman on her back, trying to get some sun, and a really, really skinny husband or / boyfriend, and she's saying, "Oh, Donald, bury me in the sand," and he's looking at her looking across off camera to say, "Well, no chance." But it was mainly double entendres, it really was. And I actually had a few collected as a kid. My dad used to collect them. But where I'm coming from, so I know you're going, "Well, get back to the music, Tony. You're not talking about music." Look, I'll get there in the end. What I'm saying is that comedy has been a very big part of my life forever and ever. In fact, probably longer than music, if I have to be honest. But they're on equal portions with each other. And every now and again, you need to release that pressure with a bit of comedy. And that comedy will come in the form of music a lot of the time, okay? Now, there was a study a few years ago about the intelligence of music listeners. Now, I don't know how valid this study is, okay? But it basically said that the most intelligent demographic of music listeners was classical music, and then it was jazz, classical music, and heavy metal. They're very intelligent people that listen to that music. And then, of course, your lesser intelligence is in pop music and rap. And look, and I don't know, that's a really nice thing to say, because again, firstly, it's quite stereotyping, and secondly, just because the music is not complicated doesn't mean that people listening to it are stupid as such, right? I don't think that's true. I think there is a definite subsect of us of our music listeners that are a bit like that. But yeah, so where I'm going from is this, okay? There's a link with that to, and I'm getting there, it's quite tenuous, guys, it's tenuous. There's a link with that to intelligence and humour. Many studies have been made about the link of intelligence and humour. So to be funny, generally you are quite intelligent. And I genuinely believe that most comedians, and I've worked with a lot of them, I used to work in the film industry, TV industry, there's a lot of comedians who are extremely intelligent. They'll come across as stupid, but they're extremely intelligent. Because it does take a lot of intelligence to be able to make someone laugh, even the most base humour. And this is where I'm coming to in music, okay? So heavy metal is it's considered quite, if you step outside, guys, if we step outside our favourite medium, genre, and we look inside and we look at people the way they look at us, I'm sure there is still a large swathe of the community that think, I've got long hair, I'm wearing a band shirt, I must be stupid. Now that's really kind of echo from the 70s and early 80s, but it's not the case, is it? It really isn't the case. The amount of times you ask someone at a gig what you do, and they'll go, "Oh, I'm doing my masters in, socioeconomics of the French Resistance or whatever. I don't know, something crazily, I'm an aeronautics engineer." Like, it's not the it means that what we are is as rock and roll lovers and as heavy metal lovers, as heavy rock lovers, is we're quite intelligent. And if we're quite intelligent, that generally should equate then we should be quite funny. I mean, I'm making big, I'm joining big dots here. But what I'm saying, where I'm coming from is that the comedy in metal is not an unusual thing. Because if you have to be intelligent to be funny, and you're generally intelligent to listen to heavy metal, it should go hand in hand, shouldn't it? We do take this medium and this genre extremely seriously sometimes, and to the point where it becomes quite choking and cloying, a little bit overbearing, and there's a time for it, but there's a time then also to relieve that valve. And I think what we in the second half when we get to it, when I talk about the actual more bands in depth, my favourite comedy band more in depth, you're going to have that relief. You have that release valve. You're listening to say you listen to. I listen to on average, I think it's something like 70 hours a week of music. I don't know, something hugely stupid like that. And if all the time is, brain melting riffs, and death growls and shrieks and shrills and speed of like guitar solos, there's a point where you need to let something go. You need to let off some steam, because it gets a little bit much, after a certain while. Now, I don't listen to metal 90%. I listen to a mix all week, prog, blues, jazz, metal, rock, even some early hip hop, that sort of stuff. I don't listen to disco and put my head in the bucket and go, if it's not a Slayer, I'm not listening to it. No. You should know by now that I have much more of an eclectic taste, but there is a point where you need something, a little relief valve, there's some of that steam out, so you don't explode. And comedy metal, it can be that way for people. It can also be a way for people to justify their love for this music, because some people are a bit embarrassed by their love of what we listen to. There are people out there who are who are doing it to actually just be rude about this kind of music. There are some bands out there who hate metal and just do it because it's are we easy targets? Probably. When you have an image as old as ours and as set in its ways as ours, long hair, black, studs. I mean, that's me, right? Just a stud, but long hair and studs. Then it's quite easy to lampoon, right? And make good money out of it. I mean, there's another thing. I mean, comedy metal is a huge slice of the music money pie. I mean, you just have to look at the new Weird Al Yankovic album movie that's coming out. He's made, and to say these words, an absolute mutzer over the years with his parodies, right? But that's, as I said, it's a release valve, like the Brits going to the beach and splashing around the water and pointing phone. It's also very much culturally different from place to place, is it not, right? Comedy, like I don't enjoy per se American sitcoms. I watch Frasier. I enjoyed Cheers. And really, I think that's it. And it's not because the Americans can't write great comedy, because you guys can make amazing, hilarious stuff. It's culturally, I don't connect. And again, that's another story, another day, I suppose. But again, it comes down to this, back down to music. But bring it back to that. I prefer the British sort of parody bands over the American ones. Because again, I don't really equate. I don't enjoy the nuances of American comedy. I like the movie isn't different. I mean, we've talked about it before in the podcast, but Spinal Tap, is possibly one of the greatest movies of all time. And so, but that's because it's parodying the British. It's an American movie, but not, if you know what I mean. I think that's why that works so well. Anyway, I'm going to go and refresh my tea. It's getting a bit cold. Hang on, just another sip. I've rambled enough in and out of about comedy, and I'm sure I would like one day to do a comedy podcast. I've got so much I could talk about it. If one day, who knows, when I've got some time. Anyway, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go and get that drink, and then we'll come back on the other side after the ads, and we might have a quick chat about some of the bands that are out in the moment. Some of my experiences with some of these bands, because I've had some interesting experiences with them, and hopefully you'll go away and have a bit of a laugh, because it is coming into the Christmas season, and it might be fun for you to release some of that tension we've had all year. COVID and price rises and the war in Russia and England doing badly at the World Cup. Well, not actually, just drew in the USA. Bugger. Anyway, that's for another day. We'll talk soon, guys. Bye for now. Welcome back, guys, to part 2. I thought I would just give you some idea. I said at the beginning that I wanted to do stand-up comedy and write sitcoms. I also wanted to write horror movies and scripts as well. But that's, we want to do lots of things in our lives, don't we? I had one funny experience with stand-up. I only ever did it once. I was sort of semi-managing this punk band and at the time. And so when I was semi-managing, I was sort of just helping them, because they were really gifted but really lazy. So I was helping them sort of, get venues. But part of the deal was that I would be able to do a 15-minute stand-up routine before they came on. To warm the room up a bit. And me being me, and not doing my research, booked this. I won't say where it is because I don't want to give it away, but I booked this venue, told everyone I was doing it, and all my mates turned up. And I thought I'd written all these really good, at the time, quite apt, jokes. I'd written a whole thing about a lot of knob gags, a lot like about I took cocaine in New York and had a hard on for a week, and I couldn't. What could I do with it once it wouldn't go away? So I was, turning the lights on and off with it, and turning the kettle on and off with it, and there's one Burns unit I can't go back to again. I was doing all that stuff, but the trouble was, the room was full of sit-down poshies eating. It was like if you ever know the Iron Maiden story where they played at Wollongong here in Australia, and they turned up the club, and it was basically dinner and dine thing. So the audience was sitting down eating their dinners while the band was playing. That's how I had it. And unfortunately, all I can remember hearing is a scraping of plates as they were not listening to me, and then standing at the bar and drinking my body weight in tequila to get over it. Anyway, that story aside, thought I'd just let you know it's a good bit of memory for me. Anyway. So, music and parody bands, and also comedy metal is not always necessarily parody metal, is it? Right? So they've got to sort of separate that, because there's a subgenre within the genre itself. I've written down a few of the bands that I've enjoyed in my time. Okay, well, first we're going to talk about GWAR. GWAR. Now, I'm wearing a GWAR shirt at the moment as we speak, and I saw them twice. I saw them in 1992 during the America Must Be Destroyed tour. I saw them at the Marquee, and then I also saw them in 2014 at Soundwave, just before David Murray Brookie died, the lead singer, the guy that played Onerous Orungus. Now, funny story about that. When I first saw them at the Marquee, I didn't know what I was up for. I got covered in fake vomit, fake blood, fake semen, every bodily fluid possible. If you know GWAR, they're all these aliens dressed up in huge foam outfits, cartoonesque, that make it ultra-violent stage show with appalling heads of the Queen, and they disembowel mothers and pull their babies out of their tummies, and the lead singer's got a cannon that's a cock, and he pisses semen all over everyone. And it sounds disgusting, and let me tell you, it is disgusting when you haven't actually seen it or been there before. But musically, they're actually really heavy. They're very musically gifted. There used to be a punk band. They were formed in 1984 in Richmond, Virginia, between two bands. I think Piggy Stick is the one they were in originally. And look, I'm not going to go and not do a GWAR retrospective. I'll go one day and talk about GWAR, but right now they're just a comic band, and the lead singer sadly died of a heroin overdose. But they were just, they were banned in America. They had albums banned. He was arrested over obscenity laws and all sorts of things. Now, I saw them in 92 in at the Marquee, and it was a small, a few it's not there anymore, sadly. I go back to London in the early Feb of next year, and it's really sad every time I walk down Wardour Street and the Marquee's not there anymore. Anyway, so you go, it was a tiny venue, and you get absolutely drenched in shit, and it was just so much fun, which is like, it was the most, I suppose, the most disgusting thing I've ever done with my clothes on, to be honest. And then I saw, in 2014, we're at Soundwave, and my daughter's boyfriend and his mates were there, and I was there with Karen, and we were going to see GWAR, and I said, well, look, I said to Karen, we're going to stand right back. I'm not getting you covered in this crap. You don't want that today. But I told the guys to go right to the front. And, sorry, just, Will's got glasses, my daughter's boyfriend, and it was, he couldn't see out his glasses. Anyway, it was quite funny. They pulled the Queen's head off, and they got the Governor General, and they disemboweled him, and they sent the blood cannon and the piss cannon into the audience. It was hilarious. Anyway, after we saw them later on at that same gig, and I think we were going to see Amon Amarth, and they come up towards us, and you could see his scowl. He was so angry, and he's like, "Oh, why did you tell us to stand there? It's disgusting. Look at the mess we're in." And I smirked and I walked on. I thought, well, you got to learn a lesson, aren't you, right? But about two days later, after we got back from Sydney, and Will calls me and he goes, "Oh, can I borrow your Gore albums? We really want to start listening to them. They're really cool." And then he died. This is Dave Murray Brookie, that is. And he was upset. I remember him saying to me, "We just found him, and now they're dead. He's dead." I smirked inside. I thought, well, okay, so you understand the joke, right? I should have probably warned you, but why would I? I mean, I had to have a bit of a chuckle to myself. It was a long, hot day. So I saw them in that twice, and I think they're the pinnacle of what you would call shock rock, right? There's a whole another sort of subsect, isn't there? Shock rock albums, shock rock stuff, but I think just in general they're also quite funny, and it's just a joke. But they also play their music with ferocious intensity. Brilliant to see live. Would I play a Gore album every day? No. Would I put one on if I needed to release some tension, just had enough? Yeah, of course I would. Absolutely brilliant. So if you want to start somewhere with a joke band, go there. And then I've got Alestorm. Now, Alestorm are in the country at the moment. Friends, in fact, my colleague has just gone to see them. A friend of mine just gone to see them. I'm not a fan. I don't really like the pirate stuff. The musically, they're interesting, and again, they're a fun band. But they play their music very much. They're very much a gifted musicians. You know, like I know that the guys at Trivium really like the guys, and they hang out a lot with each other. They're very gifted guitarists. They play a really decent form of thrash. It's just that silliness, and in metal, honestly, some of the silliest things in metal are actually in thrash, aren't they? I think thrash leads itself to an air of stupidity because of it's that sort of amphetamine speed madness of the music and the genre that sort of plays towards it, the lunacy, the high-topped sneakers and the tight grey jeans and the Wayne's World of this. And I would, I'd probably put Wayne's World in that thrash era because that sort of was that time when it was being born, was the Wayne's World time, I mean, they'll say it's more like your Aerosmith, but I'd say it's more your thrash. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, Anthrax often known for a good laugh, weren't they? Obviously there was a serious side of thrash with, as I said before last week, like Slayer and things. But even Metallica had a funny side to them, doing they weren't always dark and heavy. I mean, Anthrax did a great cover version of On the Good Ship Venus by the Sex Pistols, which is the B-side to Come On Everybody, the Sid Vicious song released once John Lydon left. It's an absolute cracker of a version of it. And then, of course, you get things like really weird bands like Mac Sabbath, where it's Ronald McDonald singing McDonald's-themed Black Sabbath rip-offs. Now, I didn't get to see them. They were playing at the Basement about 6 years ago, and I was like, maybe less than 6 years ago. Oh, I won't go. No, it doesn't seem my kind of thing. And I really regret it, because I reckon it would have been absolutely hilarious. Of course, then you look at and then you've got bands that just rawly rip off. And there's one here that rips off the worst band of all time, but at the same time does better than that, and it gets even worse than they are, and that's Cannabis Corpse. My theory on Cannibal Corpse. I'd rather sew my nuts to a wall. Be honest, awful. Now, I don't want to alienate you, the Cannibal Corpse fans out there. If you like it, you like it. I just don't know. I think banging my head with a brick hammer would probably give me more pleasure. Then of course, we can't go past the sort of the multimedia versions of these bands like Def Clock. You know, I mean, everyone knows Def Clock. If you don't know Def Clock, it's a heavy metal cartoon. I'm not going to tell you any more about it. I want you to go and find it out. It is fucking brilliant. It is hilarious, and they actually had a band, and it's very much like Spinal Tap. So there's that Spinal Tap's in that, also in that genre, and so is Bad Taste. Right? Bad News. Sorry, Bad Taste is a movie by Peter Jackson. Bad News, Def Clock, and Spinal Tap. You know, the trivium of comedy heavy metal that actually produced albums and actually produced music. So it's not just watch on TV; they actually went in the studio and recorded. So in theory, they're probably the pinnacle of the comedy rock and roll bands, right? Of the heavy metal bands. And then you got like I come across one the other day. Oh man, this made me chuckle. There's a band called Nanowar, and they just basically do Manowar covers, but like dressed as old grannies. Oh my god, it's brilliant. I couldn't take my eyes off the videos on YouTube. You can check them out. And then there's like Tenacious D. I never really got. I mean, I remember when Best Song in the World came out, and Greatest Song in the World, is it? Yeah, whatever. When it came out, I was enamoured by it. You know, when I bought it, it was actually brilliant. I liked the lyrical breakdown. I liked Dave Grohl playing the devil in the video. It was something I'd never heard anything like that before. It was catchy, and it had, you know. But there's only so much you can get from Black before you go, oh, look, that's enough. I can't do you anymore. I mean, I love him in School of Rock, and it's one of our family's favourite movies. But he just does all that kind of strange sort of a cappella stuff that just, I don't know, leaves me cold. But that particular song, fantastic. So you can also, the Tenacious D also kind of wraps up in that sort of film-based one as well, I suppose, if you want to be kind of thing, because they have made a movie from it, which is, again, this is a really big. I'm making some big, bold statements today, but one of the worst movies I have ever seen in my entire life is Pick of Destiny, and the fact that Dio was in it, and one of his last things he ever did. What a horrible thing! It is an abomination unto the Lord, my friends. If there is a Satan and he's playing with us, he made that movie. No, he didn't, because it would have been fun if he had made it. No, it's just awful mess. And then, of course, the one that we've all seen, I'm sure we've all seen, and the one that makes the most, and this one goes right back to where I started off with the Carry On movies and the picture and the postcards and the double entendres. The kings of that are American band Steel Panther. Now, I've seen Steel Panther 3 times now. I probably will never do it again. There's only so much that you can actually take of that. Again, because it's one-dimensional. It's funny, but then it doesn't last that long. It's like, I don't know. It's like a really cheap beer. You know, it tastes okay, gives you slight buzz, but then afterwards, after a few minutes, gives you a really bad headache. And I think that's very much like that, actually. I think that Steel Panther is the Budweiser of heavy metal, isn't it? And sorry, Americans, no, I'm not having a go, but Budweiser gives me a headache. That's the reason I'm saying that. It could have been any beer that gives me a headache. Enough beer will give you a headache. Yes, I know. Looking at me like that. I'm talking about after one of them. And I'm not a lightweight, okay? Just one of them gives me a headache. I got a hangover while drinking it. Anyway, Steel Panther. So 3 times. I mean, of course, if you want to see titties and lots of them in the live, then you go and see a Steel Panther concert, because when they get all the girls up on the stage and they all raise their tops. I mean, it's just the way it is. There was a moment, though, in both gigs, both times I went. The second time was at Soundwave, and I was standing in the middle of this field in an arena, in Sydney. So Soundwave was a festival, guys, for those that don't know it. And there was these like teenage boys next to me, like one on one left-hand side, one in front of me, and a really tall, rather attractive brunette, quite well endowed in the busty department as well, I might add. And I remember because the lead singer says, "Show us your tits," and she just lifted her top up. Now there's this 16-year-old boy, I reckon he was 16, it could have been much older than that, maybe 17, and I nudge him, and he looks to the left, and there he is. He's probably seen the first pair of live boobs in his entire life, and it was hilarious. Like, I think you could have knocked him over with a feather. The second time, it was very funny. Same thing, we were in a venue in Sydney. I think we were at the... could have been Hordern Pavilion. It might have been... No, it was the Metro. And there's getting a kid next to me, and a woman 2 rows up, just up from us, does the same. He pulls the top up. He looks over. Now, I didn't know this. He's with his mum. No, don't hold back, guys. His mum didn't raise the top. No, his mum. He looks over. I remember him, because it wasn't quite quiet, and I hear him go. There was a big expletive. Let's say that. It sounds like duck. Flew out of his mouth, extremely loud. And his mum just grabs him and pulls him out of the crowd, and they just go out and never saw. I didn't see him again. Now they, unfortunately, I think, the reason I can't do them on great amounts is because they are a little bit foul too much. I mean, Gwar are foul, that's right, that's fine, they are. But the misogyny in... see, when Gwar do it, they do it as aliens, and they do it with a huge sense of humour. Same way that Devin Townsend does it with Zorb, with his little alien, right? Is it Zog? Hang on 1 second, I need to check that, I keep forgetting. Ziltoid the Omnipotent, that's it, and he comes to Earth for the coffee. Yeah, so, but he do it with a bit of like a tongue-in-cheek and a little bit of harmless comedy because it's aliens or whatever. But when you start, I mean, again, please don't get offended when I say this. This is not so. I mean, songs like Asian Hooker and Glory Hole and things like that. I mean, they're funny, yeah, they're funny, but they're very misogynistic. They're basically trying to. I know what they're doing. They're taking the piss out of the hair metal scene of the Sunset Strip. You know, the glam based heavy rockers with the big hair and the bandanas and the makeup and the tight jeans and the. You know, the Motley Crues of this world, the Motley Crues of this world, and people like that, and Poison and all that sort of rubbish, and the Guns N' Roses and all that stuff, and so, but they sort of take it a bit too far, to some extent. Now I'm all for a laugh. I'm all for a laugh. All for a laugh, I really am. But then when someone like, David Murray Brookie makes his character Onerous Orungus, the lead singer, the alien, you laugh at him because he's very comic book. He's very, he might talk about, coming to have sex with all the women on the planet Earth, but he's an alien, right? It's just a funny thing. But when they're standing around on stage, Sex it can be a subject of great humour, and it is a subject of great humour. Let's be honest, we all know a dirty joke or two, don't we? Right? And it's okay when it's, I think, when it's nothing that objectifies anyone is harmless, but there's a sort of a point in objectification when it sort of is. I don't know how to describe it. There's a sort of an apex that you climb, the hill you climb. When you get to the top, if you go any further, you're going to come down the other side. And I think that's why we was back to the beginning of the show. The postcards, the carry-ons, the British naughtiness, the Benny Hills of this world, the Kenny Everetts, the so on and so forth. Those blue humour. I mean, they were doing it back in the 30s, guys. The BBC used to have a thing where you had you got blue pens and red pens, and no script could be passed and broadcast until it was read by the censorship board and then edited it. And it would you would cross through the words with a blue pen, and no, you can't have that. Max Miller, one of the greatest post-war, probably the greatest pre-war comedians of them all, who actually sort of straddled both ends of the war, both sides of the war, was well known for his blue book, because he would have a lot of his jokes at that time, and they probably weren't that, dirty compared to now, were censored heavily. I mean, if you want to go back to comedy and music that was offensive, you can go back to George Formby. Now, George Formby, I love George Formby movies, okay? And, he'd do that song, When I'm Cleaning Windows. I mean, some of the lyrics in that song, some of the things I'd see and do while they couples bill and coo, when I'm looking through when I'm cleaning windows. It's basically inferring that he's watching people have sex, right? Okay? So, and back then, very shocking, because this is the 38, 39, so on. And the Brits did that a lot. The Americans, not so much, because the Americans had, your Lauren Hardy and your Stooges and so on. Wonderful. I bloody love Lauren Hardy. In fact, some of my fondest memories of watching Lauren Hardy movies with my dad on a Sunday afternoon. But there's a point. So Steel Panther, for me, musically really fun, very good heavy metal music, just basic standard fare. But they take it a little bit too far, and it becomes... there were lots of women at their gigs, so clearly it doesn't objectify people too much, and not everyone hates it. There are ladies out there and gents who find it brilliant and hilarious. Good on you, more power to you. But obviously there are others that will think the other way, and it's not as much fun for me. A friend of mine's actually on the inside of one of their covers. He pre-ordered an album in Australia as Dave. He pre-ordered it early, and he got his name in the notes, the liner notes. Pretty cool. And it's funny because I don't equate Dave as a fan of Steel Panther. I think he would maybe find it a little bit too on the nose. But anyway, that's comedy in music. Okay, guys, I've very thinly gone over different things and bits and pieces. There's been comedy in and sort of what's it called? Parody in all since forever, right? But heavy metal seems to have its fair share because. Heavy rock, because of, as I said, because of the intelligence side of it. I think because to make people laugh, you generally have to be quite intelligent. And I know there is a factor of people that are not, that just will say knob gag after knob gag and point in the right direction and get the easiest common denominator. But most of us don't. Most of us grew up enjoying things like Mel Brooks and Monty Python and things like that, where you sort of had to think a bit about the joke. Mel Brooks is one of my favourite directors of all time. In fact, High Anxiety is one of my favourite movies of all time. But it's absolutely brilliant. Unfortunately, people go straight to Blazing Saddles, straight to the fart scene or the Mongo scene, and don't overlook classics like High Anxiety or the 12 Chairs or things like that. Or they go to Spaceballs or Hollywood Men in Tights. Ugh. Robin Hood Men in Tights. It's like, ugh. It's a generational thing, I think, maybe. I mean, I love Spaceballs. I saw that on Boxing Day when I came out and I was a kid. I was like 13, I think, maybe 14. And I loved it because it was a parody on Star Wars, and I love Star Wars. I loved Star Wars at the time, I should say. It was quite funny. I thought that Hollywood, Robin Hood Men in Tights... Why do I keep saying Hollywood? Robin Hood Men in Tights is just terrible. Absolutely terrible. It's like trying to mix Holy Grail with Blazing Saddles, but on a lower budget with not really caring. It's like when he made that Dracula, Dead and Loving It. That's another one that's terrible. I mean, you take Leslie Nielsen, brilliant Leslie Nielsen, and you put him in that, and it just fizzles, goes nowhere. It's like Young Frankenstein is it. For horror comedy parodies, Young Frankenstein is it, right? It was like, why bother anymore? It's been done, right? I went to school with, on a side note, Marty Feldman's cousin. Justin, if you listen to this, you'll remember, I think it was Philip. No, was it Philip? If it was Philip, was his cousin. You'd remember what we're talking about. You'll remember. I'm sure you will. Chat to me in the group chat. Tell me who it was. I'm sure it definitely was, but I can't remember what his name. I think it might have been George. Could have been his name. Gregory. It was a G word, maybe. Anyway, that aside, I went to school. I know, because he kept saying that, kept pointing to, telling me on the school bus on the way home. As he lived in Hampstead, I think. Yeah, he did. He lived in Hampstead, or around the back there, somewhere very posh. And I was always the last one off the school bus because I lived in Darrow Town, the rough part of London. I didn't really live in Hendon. It's quite posh. It just had I just like to think it was rough because it gives me more kudos, right? It's a Jamie Oliver effect, what they used to call mockneys. My dad calls them mockneys, and I think that's very apt. I'm not a Mockney, no, by no means. I'm a combination of a Cockney and a North London family, so I'm proud of both. Anyway, I've rabbited on. I said enough. Go and find out and enjoy some comedy and music. I hope it sort of enlightened you a bit. I hope you think, I might go and try some of that. Because as I said, there are some of us out there that are so, hardcore that we don't turn off. And I think sometimes you've got to look at the outside and look in to see the true colours when you look out. Yeah. There's a bit of philosophy I have to come up with. Anyway, that's enough today. So next week's episode is going to be this is going to release on the 7th of December, and it's a tribute to one of my musical idols that died 2016. On that day, on the 7th of December, and that is Greg Lake. I'm not going to tell you more. He of Emerson, Lake and Palmer. He recorded albums with Gary Moore, with Cozy Powell, with so there's heavy metal connections. But it's going to be a rather sort of quite. It's going to be a wonderful episode because I'm going to really sort of enjoy talking about him, but I'm also going to be sad because it will remind me that he's gone. Anyway, that's next week's episode. Next week's episode, I should say, not week after next. I'm recording this now for Wednesday. You doofus. Smacks head off camera. Yes, so enjoy your week. Enjoy listening to some comedy music. Let me know what you're listening to, what you listen to as a bit of relief, a little light relief. And yeah, keep safe, and thank goodness it's summer. See you guys.
Acast powers the world's best podcasts. Here's a show that we recommend.
Do you love to read or listen to books? Is your nightstand overflowing with books you just don't have time to read? Listen to my podcast, Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books with Zibby. I'm an author, publisher, podcaster, bookstore owner. My own novel, Blank, is out March 1st. And if you love books, you're in the right place. In fact, we call it the Zibbyverse, or rather, the LA Times calls it the Zibbyverse. Check us out, Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books with Zibby.
Acast helps creators launch, grow, and monetize their podcasts everywhere. Acast.com.